Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest monologue. This is coming after a while since the last one because I've been out on some field assignment, and the fact is it there's been a lot of deep thought I've had to go through in terms of putting this together. So it's something that relates to what we've been talking about a lot online, but it also connects. Joined a dot with the work I've been doing in terms of conservation and resource rights of indigenous communities around these conservation areas. Well, here's what it is. It's a generational war that's going on in Kenya and being ruthlessly exploited by external interests. And this is what happened. There was recently a lease agreement signed by Linguistic Conservancy with some investor, which was initially for 50 years. And the absurdity of that, I and other people were up in arms about it. And obviously, the people who signed and the so-called local representatives who signed and obviously benefit from the deal came back with the usual nonsense about I'm making noise over things I don't know. I should sort of keep quiet and keep out of it. Um, but this is a generational thing, and I've seen it cause armed violent strife in Laikipia. So so I definitely will not comply with that idea that we shouldn't talk about these things because we will have to live with the consequences in years to come. One of the barons in the investment group, somebody known to me, one of the big large ranchers, got reached out to me and asked me why am I is in his words, why am I ranting about this thing? Basically, the tone of his message was like, "You are messing up a good deal for us." And I told him off, and I told him like, "You people are robbers, and one of the very basic things, ways you are robbing these people, is signing an agreement that covers two generations. And the second generation will be completely covered, will grow to adulthood under that 50-year agreement. So you have two adult generations under a 50-year agreement. Some cases even three generations. The last one being quite young. And somebody later on called me and told me that they've gone back to the negotiating table and it is now been reduced to, I think, a 10-year renewable term, which is something that if it goes bad, yeah, it can be renewed or not. And this is one of the basic ways of correcting these things. But going to the wider issue of this carbon credit nonsense, again, I want to emphasize something I've said over and over again when people ask me. There is no single good carbon credit project in Kenya or anywhere. They're all charlatans. They're all scoundrels. They're all robber barons, 100% of them. So the people who work for them either, as Kenyans like to pretend not to know that there's a problem, or I'm just an accountant, I'm just this, I'm just that. But that's the fact of the matter. Even those who work for them know that you're working for robber barons. So don't feign ignorance, as Kenyans are wont to do. There is the poison they use, and the poison they use is very basic. It's money and promises of money, promises of big money and small actual handouts. And some places they come in and actually hand out money without any agreement. And suddenly they poison a society. A society suddenly fractured into those who've received, who are now for the project because they're expecting bigger money, and those who haven't received any, who are thinking we are being conned into signing something we don't know. So that instant fracture and discord is what is exploited to take over the vast lands we now see that have been taken over by Northern Rangelands Trust, um, uh, whatever, Masai Mara Wildlife Conservancy Association in the south, Soils for the Future in Kajiado as well. That's basically how it happens. But there was recently a protest, which was aired on Citizen TV. I'll give a link to the news report in the comments. Youth from a place called Oldonyonyokie, which is in southern Kenya, between Nairobi and Magadi in Kajiado County, and they were protesting against a carbon credits agreement fronted by Souls for the Future. It was on Citizen TV. What I noticed first is that the people protesting were all young, the ones I saw on TV, and when they were spoken to, they referred to their age group. Rika yetu imekataa hii maneno. Our generation or our age set has refused this thing. And I wondered like how that's what sort of clicked in my mind, that what's happening in a lot of areas is that there's the generation X in Kenya. This is my generation. I think I'd say those born between probably 1965 to 1975, just roughly. Um, I've said this before and I repeat it again. We've sold this country down the river. We are the ones currently leading carbon credit nonsense projects. We are the ones doing nothing in cabinet ministry posts. We are the ones doing nothing in permanent secretary posts. We are the ones, the heads of parastatals right now. And we are the ones who are quiet in the face of injustice because we are too invested in that injustice. And that's exactly what's happening in this country. So what we have is a youth that are excluded, and pastoralist communities in Kenya are are very vulnerable to this because they still have very strong age sets, elders. There's high respect for elders. The elders' word holds a lot of weight. For example, in Nyanza, where I come from, if you try to tell the youth that there is something they need to do because elder so and so said so, you'd be rejected in you'd be rejected, possibly even with some use of violence. But this is not the case in pastoralist areas, particularly amongst the mass speaking people. The elders are highly respected. But just like 1904, when the colonialists recognized this as a tool, um, drawing up the Anglo-Maasai Agreement, the conservation carbon credits conservancy movement have also recognized this as a tool. Um, when you have powerful, respected elders, you only have to compromise 10 people rather than a few thousand landowners or community members, and that's a great weakness that we have. And if you looking closely at this particular group ranch in Magadi, they have a land register. They have a land register that was landowners or members register of something slightly over 1,000 people. Um, a number of those have died because these are land register of 1994. It was closed in 1994. No one's been registered since then. A number of them have died, so maybe around slightly less, maybe they have 800 living members. And the import of this is that when the carbon traders come in, they don't deal with youth. If a land register was closed in 1994, basically no one under the youngest person in that register would be around in their mid 40s. Yeah, someone who was 18 by 1994. Yeah, it's maybe 48 years old now. Those are the youngest members in the register, Generation X and older. The Generation Y, Generation Z are excluded from this. And this is what this carbon trading companies is playing on, excluding the youth. In fact, they are referring to the youth as strangers or squatters because their name is not on the land register, the land that is registered in the names of their parents, their grandparents, etc., etc. And this This is a recipe for disaster in any society. We know that not just Kenya, but all of Africa, I think the demographic figures are something like 65% are youth, fall in the youth category. It's possible that in this particular place, they may be actually excluding nearly 70% of their society from this agreement. We all know there's no world in which 30% can do an injustice to 70% and hope to live together with those 70% in peace. Cannot happen. Cannot happen. This is a recipe for civil strife, not just at societal level, but even at domestic level within within families. And this is the sad case that we face all over the country. And these handouts of money have poisoned everything. One of the structures we have in this country that have become liabilities are county governments. These are just pork barrels. And conservation organizations have realized there's a schism through which they can exploit county governments. You'll notice that they all come in, particularly in northern Kenya, the area I'm most familiar with. They come in and say, we are going to provide health services. First thing. Next thing they say, we are going to provide water supply. If you look at the current Kenya constitution, health services and water supply are two devolved functions. So they're coming in to do the county government's work. Instantly, the county government loves them because the money which was budgeted for health services, a good chunk of it now is available for embezzlement. The money which was budgeted for water supply, especially in these arid areas, a good chunk of it is now available for embezzlement because conservation organization X or Y has come in and done that duty. And you go to these counties, and county assemblies are eating out of the hands of these conservation organizations, all but worshiping them, telling them, tell us what legislation you want us to do, and we'll pass it for you. Just call us to a workshop and give us per diems. And we've ended up in a situation where we've got some pretty pathetic people in county governments. In the course of this survey around the country, there's a senior county official we went to see in his office. And when we left, he asked us for a handout, an allowance. This is a very senior official. And I asked the assistant, obviously they don't have the courage to ask for this in person. So it was his assistant. I asked him, how is this accounted for? And I told him no, because I know very well that this is not someone I want to work with again. Someone who can ask for a handout, an allowance from someone who came to see him in his office doing his duty. He didn't go anywhere, he didn't travel anywhere. In fact, we traveled to go and see him. So this is the key problem that we have, caused by these handouts and the pressure they create. You are sort of competing with someone who's giving out handouts. Nobody wants to listen to reason. People are ready to throw away the future of their own community, their own children, because of these handouts. We must right now find a way, follow the example of those young men from Oldonyokie and other places who are saying no to this. Or if we cannot follow their lead, as I said before, we need to get out of their way. Because these are the people these Gen Zs at many levels are the ones going to save this country. The Gen X and the Gen X, Y, and those older have thrown this country to the dogs. It's just what we are doing in this country right now is unsustainable socially. Something will have to give. So the best thing is to understand what's going on and support their quest for justice, their defense of their birthright. Or if any of us can't do that, we need to get the hell out of the way and let these people chart their path and chart the path for our country as well. Because vast areas of this country are going to be taken away from us, are being taken away from us. Some have already been taken. And the pressure is because this carbon trading, this organized crime they call carbon trading, some of these people have taken advance payments. These organizations have taken advance payments from polluting companies. These are like tech companies, manufacturing companies in the West. So they've taken money and promised carbon credits, which is measured by geographical area, geographical scale. So now there's pressure. There's pressure. They want to get it by whatever means. You hear stories of youth being intimidated by Kenya government officials, intimidated by politicians. Recently, when Deutsche Welle did a story on Northern Rangelands Trust, at one point we saw on that story the journalist being called by the DCI, by the DCI officer in the area where they were doing interviews, being asked why he's disturbing Northern Rangelands Trust. This is the crisis we have in Kenya now, and everyone wherever they are going to have to stand up for themselves, because no one's going to stand up for us. And as much as it looks really bleak right now, yet it looks really bleak because even I've been in the conservation field for more than 25 years now. Going to southern Kenya, I'm asking about, the youth are complaining that there are people pushing us into these agreements, trying to hoodwink us, trying to discredit us. And I asked the names, and I'm hearing friends of mine, my age mates, who we've been within the conservation field since when I used to work in, probably 10 years ago, when I did some work in southern Kenya. Their names I know. I mean, my shame was complete. My shame over my age group, my shame over colleagues in the conservation field, 99% of whom are absolutely useless. This country has to stand up, and conservation will not be handled by some strange people called conservationists. We can't leave education to some people we refer to as educationists. Everybody must care about everything. They're trying to fragment our society into some people who are supposed not to care about conservation, some who are not supposed to care about education, and they're starting this from school by choosing pathways for our children. You be a sportsman and don't ever care about engineering. You be a conservation scientist and don't ever care about society. Be a biologist. And this is what they're doing from the bottom. But the top part, we know much better than that. We had a more holistic upbringing and education. So people of my age who purport not to know what they're doing and support or keep quiet in the face of injustice are the biggest shame of this country. And sadly, this is the group that are currently running this country. But in all that darkness, the light I've saw some time back and has been reinforced is the fact that the youth have decided they're not taking this nonsense. And they're on the road and they're coming. The key thing is, are we going to join them, or are they going to trample you on the way to gaining their actualization as a generation?